What's good, everybody? It's Brian with Bassin, and today we're back here with another video. Today's video, we're going to be talking about top water fishing during the fall and what are the top baits you want to be throwing this time of the year. So if you haven't watched my last video, I want y'all to go check that out right now because a lot of these baits that we're about to talk about in this video, I did touch on in that video. But we're going to be going into more further depth about these top water baits right here, and I'm going to be going over rod and reel selection, how you want to fish these baits, where you want to throw these baits, and what type of fish overall you can really catch on these style type of baits. So check out that video, but let's get into this video right now. So the first bait I want to talk about is a buzz bait. Early fall is a great time of year to throw the buzz bait. So I have two types of buzz baits that I'm going to talk about, and it's basically just how you fish them. It's the buzz bait with no skirt and just a trailer up there like a toad, and then you have the buzz bait with a skirt. And me personally, I don't like to fish a trailer on my baits with skirts. But yeah, these are like the two types of buzz baits that I fish this time of year. So when I'm gonna fish these does sometimes vary, but most of the time, if I'm going out and I'm fishing buzz baits, I have two rods tied up, one with one without the skirt and the other one with the skirt. So I really like fishing the one without the skirt. If the fish are kind of striking short or not really getting the buzz bait with the skirt. And this one right here creates a little bit more subtle sound. I will say not having a skirt and having a toad up there makes this bait way more skippable, especially if you got a toad up there with a flat bottom like this. This makes this bait way more skippable around wood, around docks, around stuff like that. And this buzz bait right here doesn't have any clackers. This is just a single blade buzz bait. And I really like this one when I'm trying to get a little more, create a little more subtle plop on top of that water. And that plastic of that toad allows the fish to have a little bit better, how would you say it? They get a better bite of that bait when they go to bite it. So you get a better hookup, I would say, probably without a skirt and just add a soft plastic on the back end of it. So this one right here is like a booyah buzz bait. This one right here has a clacker on it. So this one makes a lot more noise. I'm throwing this one whenever the fish are really aggressive. We really want to create a ruckus and make a lot of noise. I'm throwing this one right here. As far as color goes, I'm throwing a darker one on more sunnier days, on more sunnier mornings, because what time of day I'm fishing these either late in the evening or early in the morning. So I'm fishing a darker one when it's a little bit more sunnier outside to create that silhouette on top of the water and get those fish something to track. I'm fishing this silver one a lot of times when the water is a little bit darker and a little bit more cloudier days. Whenever I want to get a little bit of flash to go with that sound, I'm fishing a more silver bladed buzz bait. So a great way to break in buzz baits, which I'm pretty sure a lot of y'all have seen, is if you're just going down the road a little bit, sticking the buzz bait outside the window, letting it buzz for 5-10 minutes, and you will notice as you use a buzz bait, as you work it over time, that noise that it creates when it's going over the water is going to change. And whenever you get that high pitch kind of like sound and noise, that's when you know you have a buzz bait that's truly broken in. And the fish are, you're going to notice the bites. You're going to get better bites. You're going to get more bites, I think, whenever that buzz bait truly gets broken in. The next bait I want to talk about is a Whopper Plopper. I love the Whopper Plopper. It's one of probably my best and most comfortable top water baits because it's really simple. Like a plopper, it doesn't take much skill. For the most part, you can just cast and retrieve it and you're going to get bites. As long as you're throwing it during the right time of year and the right spots, you're going to get bites. Right here we have the Berkeley Chapo and the Maverick. They call this one the Maverick. I don't know if y'all can see that, but this one is broken because I threw it and it hit against a dock. So you got to be careful with throwing these ploppers and not hitting them against docks and stuff, because sometimes once one of those fins or things break that creates that plop sound, they're pretty much useless at that point. But this is one of my go-to ones right here. This is like, I think the 90, I think this is the size of this one, the Chapo 90. But this is a great bait. It catches a lot of big fish. I really like this size. I think you could go bigger, but I really like to stick this size. They cast great. And yeah, I mean, it's not much you can really say about a plopper. Like the hooks, you gotta make sure you have good hooks with ploppers. But I think these Chapo hooks are very good out the pack. A couple other different style of ploppers. You have the Guggen. Right here I have a Guggen Patroller. They give you a lot more bigger hooks on theirs. At least this version of it right here. I've caught a big bass on this one right here. As far as color goes, I pretty much stick to either a black type of lure, or I'm going to that bone color when it comes to those ploppers, and probably walking baits, same thing. I'm either going black. Walking baits I might go a little more translucent, but as far as plopper goes, I'm either going this black Maverick color with a kind of orange reddish lip, or I'm going some type of bone color. Now if you want to get more advanced with your retrieves with a popper, I do say reeling it at a steady pace, then speeding it up, then pausing. Sometimes you get bites like that. Sometimes a steady, almost working it like a popper, but you just plopping it. So a little brrr, stop, brrr, stop, brrr, stop. Something like that to kind of change up that pace, and maybe the fish like that and react a little bit more. So you could just vary your retrieves until you get a steady bite with a plopper. They're kind of simple like that. Or you can just straight cast and retrieve, and cover a lot of ground with a plopper. So the next top water bait I want to talk about is a walking bait. Right here we have a Arc 115 kind of translucent walking bait. This is one of my favorite walking baits right here. Not all walking baits have this, but I really love this little feather kind of last hook, kind of like a popper. I think that gives something the fish to kind of key in on and hit. This one has some rattles in it. I don't know if y'all can hear that, but this one I really like. I like the noise it makes. It walks great. The great thing about a walking bait is it has a lot of drawing power. Fish will come a long ways away to hit this bait, to follow it. It allows you to kind of hone in on where fish are, if they're in the chasing mood, or are they striking very heavy. And yeah, I really love a walking bait. I only really fish a walking bait, me personally, early in the morning. I think that's when it's most effective. Like I said, with the plopper I only fish two colors pretty much, which is black and that bone kind of color. With a walking bait, I will go translucent, especially if it's a little bit sunnier, or maybe a little bit clear water. I like the bone color when it comes to that Sexy Dog Shad by Strike King. Sometimes I might throw something like this with a little bit more chartreuse in it, with a like translucent bottom. This is an Excite walking bait right here. And for the most part, most of my walking baits I use have 3 hooks. Some only come with 2. But yeah, this is like the typical size, I would say, of a walking bait that I would be using. I think these work great in ponds. You can get a lot of bites in ponds with these. Obviously on lakes and stuff, people have won tournaments and stuff using walking baits. And walking baits just, I feel like, allow you to cover a lot of ground while still having something on the top. Now, walking baits transition to my next bait very well, because like I said, you can work walking baits relatively fast and cover a lot of ground with them. Well, this next bait is kind of the complete opposite, but you could use a walking bait and this bait in tandem, because if you're noticing fish really starting to follow your walking bait but not really strike it, and you want to slow down, a Topwater Popper is the perfect bait to follow that bait up with. A Topwater Popper, you're not really working it fast. Is a bait that you pop it, let it sit, pop it, let it sit. Sometimes you could chug it and make it chug water, but for the most part with a popper, you're working it kind of slow, at least a lot slower than a walking bait, that is. So a Topwater Popper this time of year is a great bait. If the fish are a little bit lethargic, aren't really in the chasing mood, Topwater Popper gives you, it allows you to stay in that strike zone a lot longer than, it allows you to stay in that strike zone a lot longer than some of these other baits. And you can vary the size of a popper. I really like this little popper right here. I like throwing this one a lot more on either BFS or on a spinning rod setup with just straight braid, something like this. But then if you are going after bigger fish, you can definitely upsize your popper to something like this, which is a lot bigger than this one right here, as you can see the size differences. So as far as colors goes, can't really go wrong with the color. Sometimes I like to throw one with poppers. I like poppers that have some red in them, some poppers with white bellies, dark tops. I really love poppers like that, poppers with that red mouth and lip. I grew up fishing poppers, and most of the poppers that I fished growing up had those features, and I caught a lot of big bass on them. But this popper right here has a pink top, And it's all black all around. This is, like I said, you fish black a lot of times when it's really sunny outside, when you want to create that silhouette, and this is a great popper to replicate that. Now, the last bait is no secret when it comes to fall topwater bass fishing. I'm pretty sure there's 1,000 videos about these baits, so I'm not gonna go crazy in depth about them, because me personally, I'm still learning when it comes to this bait. This is one I feel like one of the more difficult baits to master when it comes to topwater bass fishing. And that's pretty much is a topwater frog. And right here I have a bunch of different topwater frogs. Well, the great thing about topwater frogs is they can replicate a popper, because you do have the popping topwater frogs. But then they can also replicate a walking bait, because you have walking style topwater frogs. So they are versatile like that. They don't have treble hooks like walking baits or poppers. So they allow you to throw them in a lot more, let's say, a lot more cover, a lot more weeds and stuff like that, and get big bass to bite. So everybody knows frogs catch huge bass. Probably one of the baits that catch the biggest bass are going to be frogs. Like I said, the most popular styles of a topwater frog is the popping one and the walking one. But you also have ones like this, which are kind of like in between. Like this is I wouldn't say in between a popper, but this is kind of like in between a walking bait and a plopper bait, because this one has a little boot tail trailer on the end of it, where you could just cast and retrieve this one right here, and it kind of creates that subtle plopping sound that a Whopper Plopper would make. So you have different types of frogs out there on the market. When it comes to buying frogs, you want to get soft frogs. You don't want frogs with hard plastic and stuff like that, because that's just going to mess up their action. It's going to mess up your hookup ratio. You want soft frogs. You want frogs that don't take on a lot of water, because then they're going to sink, and that defeats the whole purpose of a frog. You want the frog to stay on the top of the water. As far as colors goes, you can really keep it simple with frogs. A black frog, white frog, or something with a little bit of both in it. Like this one right here, this is a popping frog. Black top, kind of white translucent belly with a red lip. So you really keep it simple with frogs. You don't have to go crazy with it. Green frogs also work. Like I said, light belly, dark top. Sometimes you can switch it up. The top doesn't matter as much, because the fish are mainly seeing that bait from underneath. So yeah, with a frog, color wise, just keep it simple. Keep it something that looks natural, something that looks good, and you're probably gonna get bites. Let's talk rod and reel selection. As far as reels goes, whenever you're fishing topwater, you want some type of high gear ratio reel, because whenever that fish bites, you don't want slack line. You want to eat up that slack line fast, so you can set that hook on that fish. So anything probably 7.5 to 1 and up is great for topwater. And that's really, like, I'm not gonna get into brands of reels and brands and rods, because that's just gonna be dependent on your budget. I'm not gonna tell you to go buy a $300 reel and rod, and that's not in your budget. Just for topwater fish, I'm not gonna tell you to do that. But I'm gonna tell you what type of rods and reels that's gonna work best for these type of baits. So we just talked about frogs, right? So here we have that swamp lord that I have tied on. I didn't mention this frog, but this is a great frog. This has really been buzzing the last year and a half. Won a couple big tournaments. People have won a couple big tournaments using the swamp lord. As far as rods go, I like fishing a 7.4 to 7.6 heavy action rod with a fast tip, because I feel like you need that fast tip whenever you're fishing topwater, because it allows you to set that hook better, allows you to react a little bit faster, and keep that hook pinned in that fish's mouth. Only time I go lower than this whenever frog fishing is if I'm just making short casts. I might go down to a 7.2 heavy. As far as line goes for frog fishing, 50-pound braid is my standard line that I use whenever I'm frog fishing. Like I said, I'm still learning. I'm still trying to get better at frog fishing, but I found 50-pound braid is the best line to use. And just listening to others talk about this, about frog fishing, we have way more experience. 50-pound line is the way to go. 50-pound braid, main line, straight braid is the way to go. So this next rod I'm about to talk about is the rod that I use for all my other topwater techniques except for frog fishing, and that is the Arc Catalyzer 36T. This is a heavy action fast rod, and this is pretty much my go-to. This is a 7.2. I love 7.2 when it comes to any of the other techniques. whether that's walking baits, whether that's poppers, whether that's ploppers, or buzzbaits. This is my go-to rod right here. I really like this rod because I think it has enough give around the tip of this rod, but a great backbone. This rod has a great backbone. As you can see, I have a jig tied on. I even use this rod for jig fishing. But as far as my setup for all my other top water techniques is, if I'm fishing Whopper Ploppers, if I'm fishing buzzbaits, if I'm fishing poppers, I'm only using straight braid main line, and I'm using 30-pound braid, not 50-pound, because I think that's too heavy for a lot of those baits. But nothing in the 20s or 10s, nothing below that, because those are too light, I feel like, for those top water baits. And when you fish the top water, you catch big bass. Sometimes they take you in the cover. You don't want 20-pound braid line or anything lower bit like that, because you're probably going to snap off. I think 30 is the happy medium, and I think that's just the best. It casts the furthest. I think whenever you fishing those ploppers and stuff, because they're a little bit heavier, it allows you to really get leverage and cast that bait far. But that's what I'm fishing on those types of baits. Only time I tie on a fluorocarbon leader, well, actually not a fluorocarbon. Whenever I'm fishing walking baits, I don't tie on a fluorocarbon leader. I tie on a monofilament leader, and that gets great action. I really think the action is a lot better whenever you have that 30-pound mainline braid and a 20-pound monofilament leader. With a walking bait, I think you get great action walking that bait. And that's probably, like I said, that's probably the only bait that I'm gonna tie on a leader instead of using just straight braid with. I hope y'all got a lot out of this video. Like, comment, subscribe. I'm not an expert. If y'all have any tips or y'all disagree with anything I said in this video, please comment that down below. I'm interested in learning. Like I said, not an expert. If y'all are great frog fishermen and I'm not, then drop some tips down below and help me out. Go to the Instagram, follow up there for some more short form content. And yeah, stay tuned for the next video, and peace out.